I want to introduce you to two of my really women that I just absolutely rely on. Judy Davis has been a League of Women Voters member for a long time. And what I really treasure about her is that not only does she know the rules, and you can ask her about the rules, but she really has good judgment. I would say that. And sometimes we need people not just to read to us what's in the PIA or the issues in action and that sort of thing, but to really think through, should we be doing this or should we not be doing this, or is there another way that we can be doing this? And Judy is just really a rock star when it comes to helping me and helping our leagues figure that out. She's been on the national board. She's been on state boards. She has traveled in countries where she doesn't even know the language and helped them figure out how to do democratic activities like having candidate forums and ballot issues and that sort of thing. So she really comes with a great deal of knowledge and perception. She's a sure fellow, and she's lots of other things. And this is a family act because Anita Gibbs is a family member. Now, Judy is a member of Grays Harbor League, and Anita Gibbs is a member of Thurston League. And Anita is joining us, I think, within the last year from Atlanta, Georgia. So she comes from a whole different part of the country with a whole different set of skills, abilities, and we're delighted to have them both doing a tag team program on some of the really knotty issues about how do we maintain our credibility, how do we maintain the fact that we want to be, you know, nimble, quick, whatever it is, and how do we just really grab a hold of this nonpartisan issue. So with that, I'm turning it over to Anita and Judy. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. Well, I want to talk about, let's just do some background, and then Anita is going to do some history, and then we're going to take questions. So the League of Women Voters is built on the bedrock of study, consensus, and nonpartisanship. The study gives us the expertise to speak with authority and support our arguments. Operating by consensus allows us to speak with one voice, which gives us strength and clout on a national level. Our nonpartisanship engenders trust that we are working for the greater good because we're only focused on solving problems. And because we don't have money or favors to hand out, we proceed on our credibility, forged and burnished by 100 years of hard work. Nonpartisanship is a difficult concept to grasp. When I was on the national board, at some point we decided that instead of using the term nonpartisanship, we would start to talk about the fact that we don't support or oppose candidates. We don't support or oppose parties. We are political, but nonpartisan means that we work on issues, but we don't deal in personalities or candidates. It's a simple concept, seemingly to me, but it's difficult for people to understand. And so I think if we just talk about we don't support candidates, we don't oppose candidates, and we don't support or oppose parties, that leaves us free to work with everybody. And that is our huge strength, is that we are free to work for everybody, with everybody. And we do that, and we have done that forever. We've been invited by people of both parties to help write legislation and then shepherd it through. We've always been able to do that. That's really the best solution to anything. We have to have honest bipartisan discussions. We have to have compromise and agreement. We simply must be able to talk honestly with those who don't agree with us so we can understand their views. Otherwise, we're not going to come to a good conclusion. We just continue to tinker around the edges of what's wrong without ever fixing it. This isn't news. We all understand this. But what I would like to think about today is how to get around the seemingly intractable partisan divide that is keeping us from working together to solve increasingly critical problems. Is anybody else getting that feedback?
Yes, I am. I think somebody's not muted.
Okay. All right. You know, we've always had the same positions. For 100 years, the political landscape has shifted around the many positions we've taken on issues, but our positions have remained the same. We've maybe have done some updates, clarified language, but the issues have never changed. The politics, however, has changed around our issues. And so issues cannot be partisan. They've always been there. They've always been based on study and facts, but sometimes the politics changes around the issues. The issues are political because we have to advocate to get anything done on issues. And that's, you know, that's political action, but it's not partisanship. It's simply trying to affect change. It's the most direct route and the only way really to affect change. Issues are problems to be solved for the greater good of the country, the community, the state, wherever they exist, not for a political party. Issues are not partisan. Everybody needs clean water to drink, clean air to breathe, access to health care, and so forth. The truth doesn't change. What does change is the politics around the issue. Let's look at an example of that in depth to help us understand how it evolved and how we might talk about it in our advocacy. And before Anita starts to do her history part, I think I would like to say a little bit something about that. You know, when the South was completely democratic, and in 1957, after Brown versus Board of Education passed, it was a Republican president who sent troops down to Arkansas to force a Democratic governor to allow Central High School to be segregated, to not to be integrated in Little Rock. And after that, things have evolved in so many ways, and we have a recommended reading list that we'll talk about at the end. But on that reading list, I have put things that I would like for you to read and to listen to, because you can see how with the Southern strategy of beginning with Richard Nixon, the Democrats in the South went from the Dixiecrats sometimes to independents and then to Republicans. And so the politics around issues just did a 180, but the issues never changed. It's just the politics that changed. And so, Nita, if you want to do your history part, take it away.
Okay, I'll do a little bit of history and then I might add a little bit of current events. Okay, so I'm on the air here. So thank you so much, Judy. Again, I'm Anita Gibbs. I'm with the Thurston County League. Thanks everybody for coming today. Judy introduced the topic that is dear to me, is history, and I'm very interested in the history of the League. Especially being a Southerner, there have been so many great things that the League has been so helpful in helping us achieve throughout the years. For 100 years, the activism of the League of Women Voters has been at the forefront of giving voice to grassroots issues. One of those issues that is as true today as it was 100 years ago, or nearly 100 years ago, is the fight for clean water. One of the things that we're talking about today is our credibility. Hang on. The credibility of the League with regards to one particular issue, which has remained constant since the Muscle Shoals water study, it's only a kernel of everything that the league does, but this is just one thing that I want to emphasize because it has been one of the most important issues that we've been consistently involved with and at the forefront of. After women were given the right to vote in 20, they went on to do the Shepherd-Towner Act to help bring health care and education to poor communities, especially at the federal level. And then in the 1930s, after the Muscle Shoal water study, the league was there. Here's this new league with all of these people, women, with this new power, this new voice, and they've used it ever since to keep up with making sure that we have clean water and water protection. In 1933, when Roosevelt signed the Tennessee Valley Authority Act, the league was there. Bell was there at the signing. He gave her a pen, thanked her for her help because it was the league that helped bring everyone to the table to see that this was not just a bunch of housewives. These women had done research. They had learned as much as they could. They had lobbied for everyone. They had lobbied everyone to try to make sure that not only when the dam was built and they were building using hydroelectric power to make things easier for daily life in the 30s, they also wanted to make sure there was going to be clean water and also that there was not going to be the good old boy system, that jobs given under this act were going to be done with regards to a meritocracy. And they were pretty successful with that. Again, this is one issue that the league has been on top of since the get-go. In 1948 with the Federal Water Pollution Act, up into 72 with the very difficult act to finally get passed, even though Richard Nixon vetoed it. The Congress stayed in session so it wouldn't get put in the back pocket. That thing was passed. The veto was overridden, and we have the Federal Pollution Control Act amendment. The league was there keeping an eye on this particular issue in 1977 with the Clean Water Act. In 87, when there needed to be cleanups and more attention put to what was going on with regards to pollution. Today, the league is still involved, keeping an eye on this one topic, trying to make sure, if you look at the National League site, one of the most recent things was in March when they're trying to quash the voice of people at the grassroots level where it comes to forums, to being able to go in and to share ideas and to get information about what is going on with changes to the national environmental policy. They're trying to quash public dissent information. And so again, the league is there to handle this situation. That's the history. If we look at what's going on today, every time you turn on your TV, you look at your social media, you open a newspaper, the past week has been an amazing time for young people and young voices. I am so glad to be part of this league here in Washington because I know that we were going to be at the forefront of helping these young people and giving them credibility for the future. We've had a lot of good examples of credibility and how people can be relied upon. We've also had some really bad examples in the public eye of people who have lost credibility because of their inability to follow through, to educate themselves. One of the things when I think of credibility is being trustworthy, but how can you be trustworthy? You have to educate yourself, just like the women did during the movement to get the vote. Once we got the vote, they have remained the citizen experts. They research, they follow the facts, they stay steadfast to the truth, and they stay steadfast to the issue. Politicians come and go, administrations come and go, but one of the best parts of us as a league is following the issue and standing up for that issue at the grassroots level and at the national level. And I'm such a lucky girl to be here with you guys and to be starting a new chapter of my life with the Washington League, Thurston County. Thank you. I look forward to the next 100 years.
Thanks, Anita. I want to talk a little bit more about credibility too. The League has, over the years, been what we call the trusted convener. So many times the League has been able to convene a meeting with all the various voices coming together. And I know I've said a lot of times that the thing I love about the League is that we take the heat out of an issue and inject the light. Because when we have our forums, when we have our candidates forums or issue forums, we have guidelines. It's all about the participants. It's never about the League. And we make a safe space for people to come together and talk about these very hot issues when we know that your voice can be heard without somebody shouting you down or things getting ugly. I've had a couple of very hot issues, property issues, where I did ask a deputy to be in the back of the room, but all we needed was the presence, because people get very passionate about things. But the League is always so relaxed and calm about these things because we have guidelines for everything. We've done this for a long, long time. And that's why when we have candidates forums, when the election season comes around, and I've been in 8 different states, and I've been county government chair, and I've put together a lot of candidate forums. And we start getting calls saying, is the League gonna sponsor a forum? When is the forum gonna be? We get those calls from candidates of both parties. And why are they calling us and asking for this? Because they know that when they come to a League forum, it's going to be a safe space. There's not gonna be any gotcha questions. There's not gonna be any ugly speech making, because we take our questions from the public written so that nobody stands up and makes a speech and has an opportunity to say something unworthy. And so we've written the book, literally, called Face to Face, on how to put on a candidates debate or candidates forum. And we've trained moderators, and we know how to put on issue forums. And so we're the trusted convener, and that's a huge piece of our credibility. And why? Because we are nonpartisan, because we have focused simply on the issues, and we've done it for 100 years. Nonpartisan all the way. So I think we want to have as much time as possible for questions. So let's do that. Let's see if there are questions out there. And if not, I can talk about this a long time.
We have one question. Has the League of Women Voters ever been denied access to information by public officials?
Oh, yes. Yes, we have from time to time. Because I've been in League 40 plus years, I remember when the various sunshine laws came to the fore. And the sunshine laws came about because people were being shut out of meetings and not having access to information. But I don't know if the question is about that or the studies. When we do our studies, I don't know that we've been denied access to information as far as that goes. We've managed to get the information that we needed. But yes, when it comes to meetings, I can remember a time when I started my league career observing the school board in a small town. And I had to remind them that they needed to have the agenda available for people ahead of time, and that they needed to provide the minutes because they were a public board. And I would go and sit in all the meetings. And it makes an enormous difference just to have somebody sitting in the room listening. I can tell you for sure that the behavior changes. It's a much, much different atmosphere when they know that there's somebody there observing. And that's one of my fondest memories, when I first went to the school board meeting and just sat in the back of the room with my league button on and didn't say anything. Well, actually, it was a provision of league, and I didn't have my button yet. And they couldn't stand it, and somebody came back and said, "Are you from the TV station in Little Rock?" Because this was in Arkansas. And I said, "No, I'm just observing." And so just the fact that we are in the room makes a difference.
I have a question. From Judy. Send it from, let's see. Does the league make record requests under sunshine laws?
We have, yes. Freedom of information. We've done that, yes.
We have a comment from Kathy saying we haven't typically utilized public requests here in Washington. Interesting. From Dawn, from Spokane, who pays for our participation in all of those lawsuits?
You mean at the national level? Well, we have, at the national level, we have a staff person who works with typically the Brennan Center or another center like that. And the lawsuits, the lawyers are pro bono for the most part, and they are happy to have the league sign on an amicus brief, friend of the court brief. And, you know, we do pay. We have an attorney on retainer that we get advice from, but for the lawsuits, it's pretty much, it's all pro bono. And what we pay for is our staff person to liaise.
We have a question from Martin Gibbons. What are the essential elements of nonpartisanship, and how would we define it?
The essential elements are simply, we do not oppose or support candidates. We do not support or oppose political parties. We just work on issues, and that frees us to work with anybody who's working on that issue, so we can all work together.
Okay. All right, any other questions here? Please put them in the chat if you have a question so I can relay them. And Miss Dawn says from Spokane, she said, that was not a question, she was just quoting. I'm sorry, that was my fault. I'm slow on the uptake sometimes. Thank you, Miss Dawn. Jeannie, the question about guidelines and collaboration. 1 second. All right, I'll find that one, but first, while I look for that one, Miss Sandra Herndon from Thurston County. Hi, Miss Sandra. She has a question. How do we avoid the perception of partisanship when our positions coincide with a particular party's issue that have become political?
We can't control what the party chooses to work on. That has nothing to do with us. As we just pointed out, we have worked on the clean water issue for 100 years. And so the parties have changed. I mean, the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act was signed by Richard Nixon, but it was a bipartisan bill. He vetoed it, but it was overridden, so it was bipartisan. And we never look at who's doing what, because our issues don't come from the top down. We don't look at what the various parties are doing. We look at what's going on in our community, or what's going on in the state, and what's going on nationally. So we study local issues, and we study state issues, and we decide which issues. The community decides which issue they want to study every year, if they want to study something. When we come to convention for the state, if people think there's a burning issue in the state that we need to take action on and we don't have a position, then we'll study that. It comes from the grassroots, has nothing to do with the parties. If they coincide, it's not our doing. And so, I don't know why you would want to look at it that way. Well, I guess I do know why, because frankly, for at least the last 30 years or more, I guess since the 70s, the political consultants have worked very hard to build a partisan divide. I know you heard this talk about wedge issues, things that they want to use for a wedge to drive between people, which is, it's counterproductive. We don't want to participate in anything like that because we want people to come together. We want both parties to work together because that's the only way we're going to solve anything. You can't solve anything with parties, completely at loggerheads. We see that right now. We see what has come of the political consultants spending years to drive wedges between people, and it has caused gridlock. And we can't solve anything because it's come to if you're not with us, you're against us. That's never who we've been, and that's how we've managed to get so much done in the past. And it's a shame. It's a shame because the only real way we're going to solve things is to have both parties work together, have honest discussions with each other, and come to some conclusion. There has to be compromise. There must be compromise. You cannot get anywhere without it. But compromise has become a bad word. And we can't work like that and make anything happen. And we're not making anything happen.
One moment. We've got some really good ones here, Judy. If you want to, can you click on your chat? Because they're coming in faster than I can read them.
Okay, all right.
Some really good ones here. There's a really good one here from, let's see. Where's the one? There's one from, from Paula Barnes. This is a really good one. Everything has become partisan and political nowadays. Our positions never change. This is great. But people are looking at us saying that we're left-leaning. I have another comment down here further down where someone was from Jeannie from Kitsap said that someone yelled at the voter registration booth and said, "You're a bunch of liberals." I ignored him. Is there a better response? Because liberalism or conservatism are subjectively defined. How do you answer someone that screams, "Bunch of liberals"? What do you do?
If you're at a voter registration table, you're not liberal or conservative. You're trying to help everybody be able to vote. That's not liberal. That's trying to help you have your own voice. We don't tell people how to vote, but we want everybody to vote, and we want them to understand how to access the process, because we know that the more people that are able to vote and express their views, the better outcome we have in the country, the better outcome we have for elections. The more people vote, the better the outcome. It it never fails when there's huge turnout. And the fact that we are there means that we're there for everybody. When we have a candidates debate, I saw that someone said, you know, that their representative wouldn't come because they were afraid. Well, what would their representative be afraid of? Because the candidate forums we have are not for us. They're for the community. They're for the candidates. I mean, we make a safe place for the candidates to come and talk directly to their constituents with nobody in between. We're just transparent conveners. We just facilitate. We don't inject anything. The questions come from the audience, from their constituents. And I would say that they have a duty to come and talk to their constituents face to face. After all, their constituents sent them there and can take them and can send them back home, and they're paying their salary. They're paying their expenses. We're paying for them to be there. So the fact that we are doing this, we're doing it for a community. And this business of saying, oh, well, you're just partisan because of this issue or that issue. And that's why I started with issues are not partisan. Don't talk to me about, you know, the Democrats have this issue or that. Tell me whether or not you want clean water. Do you want clean water? We're working on that. Who else is working on clean water? Surely Republicans want clean water too. It's, you know, I think that's how you have to talk about it. That's why we wanted to show you that we worked on the water issue and the clean air for 100 years. And in that time, the parties have swapped, you know, they've come and gone. Things have changed. In 1962, when Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, came out, John F. Kennedy was president, and his administration tried to besmirch her. They tried to shut her down. They tried to, you know, stop her having any effect, which I was shocked to find out. So nobody owns an issue. The parties don't own an issue, but the political consultants have tried to convince people that the parties own an issue. They don't. These are our issues. The community owns the issue. And so that's, you know, that's how I respond to people, because, you know, we're not liberal. We are grassroots. And I think that's what I would say. We're grassroots. We're in your community. We're working for you. We don't work for parties. We don't work for candidates. We're working for you. We lift your voice up to try to get things better in your community for you. All right. I see this as our mission statement speaks to us being a political organization. How would you explain this? Well, I knew that would come up, so I started off with that. We're political because we take positions on issues. Otherwise, we may as well pack up and go home. We would have no effect. What would we do if we didn't go and advocate for issues? What would be our purpose? Political is not partisan. Partisan is when you are advocating for a party. Partisan is when you are advocating for a particular candidate from a political party. We don't do that. We don't endorse people. We don't oppose them. We only talk about issues. We talk to politicians, but we talk to them about issues. Let's see, can you give us a specific example of when League was accused of being partisan or too political, and how did you handle it? Well, lots and lots of times. And I think I've just talked to you. There was a candidate debate that I was putting together in Fort Collins, Colorado. And the candidate, one of the candidates said that he wouldn't come because we were partisan. And apparently he didn't say it to us. He just said he couldn't come. He wouldn't come, whatever. And it made the front page of the newspaper. And so the newspaper called me up for a comment. And I said, well, I don't understand why he would say that, because at this particular time, we had been in existence for 75 years. And I simply said, well, everybody else in the country that I've talked to, and seemingly the majority of people in the country, believe we're not partisan. So I don't know what makes him think that, because we've never been partisan for 75 years. We've had that reputation, and I haven't seen it collapse in that length of time. And what it boiled down to, and then he came back and finally said, well, he would come, but he didn't come because the morning of the campaign forum, the candidate forum, he called into a radio station saying that there was a very important vote that came up in DC, and he had to go to DC. And so he didn't show up. And, you're never going to say anything untoward about anybody, because I knew that there was not a critical vote coming up. But apparently, he may have been afraid of his constituents. And my point was, well, I feel bad because his constituents now won't get to see him. And I can't understand why he wouldn't want to come and talk to them. And I think that's just how you have to respond. You have to talk about the length of time that we've had these positions. It didn't start yesterday. It didn't start with a certain whoever was in office. It started because the Tennessee Valley Authority back in the 20s, they built a huge dam and buried lots of little communities and could have destroyed all sorts of things, but they didn't. It wasn't nearly as bad as it might have been because there was somebody watching. And that's what we do. We monitor, we speak out, we raise up the voice from the community. Every position we have and everything that we do, it comes up from the grassroots. And if somebody's asking you that in your community, you have to say the people in your community thought this was important to work on, and that's how we got where we are.
Judy, I saw a really good question further up, and it had to do with how do you balance being a league member if you decide to go to work on a political campaign? How do you balance the two?
It depends on if you're a league member but you're not on a board. That's a different thing. We don't ask league members not to be political in their life, in their private life. We don't ask that. But if you're on the board of directors, then it's a very different matter. I have been on boards for 40 years, and I have never worked on a campaign because for me, the league came first. And this is titled, Our Credibility is All We Have. And that's exactly it, that we exist on our credibility. That's what gives us our clout. It's exactly why we're so powerful, because we don't have any money. All we have is people power and our reputation of being completely objective about things. And so if you're on a board, your first duty is to the league. And so you can't work on a campaign. And I would say, every community has their nonpartisan policy. But in this climate, I would say that it would be reckless to work on a campaign or do anything with any visibility at all in a campaign or at a party level if you're on a league board, because once our reputation is gone, I don't know that we would ever get it back.
Here's a great one from Carol Goss from Thurston. Will the League of Women Voters US address how to protect the 2020 election? Many of us are beyond concerned. We're terrified. We have members who want to join the community groups to stop what they see currently as a corrupt system that will hijack the presidential election. They're looking for your advice And what nonpartisan direction do you anticipate League of Women Voters US will give regarding protecting the election?
Well, if you go on the League website, they have been constantly working on this. They have been constantly working to make it safe to have vote by mail with the COVID, along with everything else. And they've been pushing that. There's been lawsuit after lawsuit. And I would say that I don't know what advice that they will have specifically, but I know that I'm getting some letters from them. And go on the website and read the news articles and the things on the national website, because they are neck deep in this, and they put a lot of money behind it. So I know they're working on it every day. They're just as concerned as we are, all of us. And I can't speak for them. I know I was up there for 6 years. But that's been a while back, and we didn't have this particular issue, but we had, there was always some issue about trying to oppress the vote. I mean, voter oppression started back in 2003 with these model laws that they sent around from state to state to try to get them put into place. And we've seen a lot of that quashed. So this has been going on for a very long time. This is not new. This is just another chapter. And having the virus makes it all worse. But the League is constantly working on that. I hope that gives you some hope.
We have a question with regard to social media presence and credibility. Dawn from Spokane has pointed out a question earlier, thank you, from Rhonda. From looking at several League of Women Voter Facebook pages, in order to like them, I've observed that they are related pages, on the Facebook, they show related pages. And she's noticed that their other sites include Democratic Party, Young Democrat groups, and an individual politician. Does the reality of social media potentially compromise our credibility as being nonpartisan?
Well, social media has done a tremendous amount of damage. And I think all bets are off with social media, because if you've got related web pages and things, related people, the people that and that might come to your Facebook page may have other things that they're involved in. And so it's if you're looking for something, you'll find it. Let me just say that if you're looking for something, you'll find it. But if you have common sense and you say that there are other people, friends that you have that are connected with other things. But the League has always been involved with both parties. When we have events, when we have issues, we call up the county party. I don't know what it's called here, but in other states, we call up the county Republicans, we call up the county Democrats, we invite them. We invite them to work with us. We have always, when I've lived in various states, we have a Christmas party. The local league would have a Christmas party, invite our representatives and if they were all Republicans, we invited them. If they were all Democrats, we invited them because they were our representatives. And so if you're looking for something and you're looking at that, you're going to find it. But if you go back to looking at where we came from 100 years ago, and how we have lasted for 100 years, it's because we're demonstrably not partisan, because we work on issues. And if the Democrats like our issues, that's great. We wish both parties would like our issues all the time. That's not going to happen. Sometimes the Republicans we have worked with, and the Democrats weren't happy with that particular issue. We don't waste any energy on that. We only focus on what problem are we trying to fix in our state, our local community, our nation. And we work together on that as a grassroots organization. Betsy Lawson, who was one of our longtime lobbyists, who's now retired, I was sitting in her office one day, and she said, I don't know what we were talking about. She said, you know, I can remember going into a senator's office and having him say, well, he said, I know that this is an issue now, because when the league starts talking about it, I know it's an issue, and I don't really pay much attention until I hear from the league. And why did he say that? Because it comes from the grassroots. Because what gets up to Washington, D.C., in a senator's office by one of our advocates from this national office is something that started back in, Hoquiam, Washington, or Spokane, or some other state and some other community. It came from the grassroots. If the League of Women Voters is talking about it, that's what people in communities across the nation are talking about. And that right there will tell you that we're grassroots. We're not partisan. We're grassroots. We're people. We work on issues.
Thanks. Yeah, Tony Wilson from Thurston also had something to add to that. Was those related pages entries on social media are put there as sponsored or paid pages by Facebook. You can't fix it.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I noticed that too, and it's very annoying. There are buttons you can click to get rid of that, but there's an algorithm, and it's following whatever the words are. It's following the conversation, and I guess like Judy talked about and we talked about before, was sometimes some of our issues do seem like they're partisan because one party has really jumped on board with it. But again, that can change depending on the issue, because remember, we're only focused on the issue. So that's a Facebook problem. It's not really a league problem.
Yeah, it's a social media problem.
Social media problem, not our problem.
The algorithms are part of what has caused the bubble that people are in, because they want to feed you the things that you're talking about. I don't want to just hear about the same thing. I read widely. I read everything. I don't want to just read one thing. I want to get my information from one place. And if that is the thing that I have told so many people, if you're just getting your information from one place, you're not getting information, because you have to read different views. If you don't read different views, you can never understand the issue. That's why we have to be able to talk to the people who don't agree with us. We have to talk to the people that don't agree with us so that we can understand why they don't agree with us. And when you talk to people one-on-one, you can get a long way with that. But this knee-jerk partisan liberal, I just want to choke the media people who want to preface everything by they put it in there. They say it liberal. That doesn't need to be in there. Just state whatever you're stating. Don't talk about liberal or conservative. It doesn't matter. But we have been conditioned by the political consultants to think in that way. But if we can think as a community person, as a family person, as somebody who wants health care for, a child who is extremely ill, if we want clean water and I live in Washington State, out here on the ragged edge of Grays Harbor, because Memphis, Tennessee was choking me. It was killing me. The air was toxic. It was always over the top with, the EPA chart. We had a purple alert. I didn't even know it went to purple. I thought red was the worst you could get. And I started having spells that I couldn't swallow. And the doctor said it was something that I had breathed in. And I said, I just can't live here. And if you have never lived someplace that the air is so bad that it makes you ill, my husband had a chronic cough. We came out after we bought this house, we came out for the summer. In 2 weeks, and his cough was gone. When he went back to Memphis and I talked to him on the phone, in a few days, his cough was back. I mean, there is such a thing as air that is too toxic for people to live there, because it was right on the Mississippi River. It would be at 100 degrees, 90% humidity, and you could just see it cooking up all that mess in the air. It was brown. There was a cracking plant for Valero south of us. There was a Dow chemical plant north of us. And Tennessee doesn't like regulation. And it's choking their people. So, this is reality. It's not a liberal issue. It's not Memphis was a sea of liberalism in a state of conservatives, but they had managed up until, recently to get along, but they don't like regulation. And sometimes you have to have regulation if you're going to have a quality of life.
Okay, we have, I think, time for one more. Again, from Martin. Please. We have time for one more, I'm sorry. From Martin. It said, please review again who can speak for League of Women Voters US or for the League Washington or for other local leagues. Who can speak for the leagues?
Who can speak for the league? All right, in your local league, you have a board of directors, you have a president, vice president. The president typically speaks for the league, or someone that the president designates, maybe an issue expert to speak on a certain issue. That's who speaks for the league. And we do that because we want to speak with one voice. We always want to make sure we are saying the same thing at every level. At the state level, it would be the state president, or perhaps another issue chair that is designated to speak, or whoever is designated to speak on that issue. But not everybody, you can speak as an individual if you want to speak for, on something, if you want to go and talk to your own representative, but you can't speak for the league. At the national level, there are people designated to speak for various issues. We have 2 advocates that go and speak. We have a lobby corps, a lobby team, just like we do here in Washington. We have a grassroots lobby team at the national too. And they are briefed by our advocates, and they go and speak to representatives, but they take the message that comes from the board of directors. So the board of directors sets policy, and the presidents speak or designate somebody to speak for the league. That way we don't confuse our message. We wouldn't want to have everybody going out and saying, whatever they thought was the right thing, because then if you confuse the people that you're trying to talk to change something, then you're gonna lose your credibility early on if people are taking different messages about the same issue to them.
Okay.
You can do one more.
Let's see. This is a good one. This is from Joanna Cullen. Do you remember or know when or if, hang on, am I on? All right, here's a good one. Do you remember or know when or if a league needed courage to take a position that some may have thought put our reputation as a fair convener on the line?
Well, that happens from time to time. It happened when I was on the national board. We did the clean air ads in Massachusetts and in Missouri. And we did those clean air ads because we were one vote away in the Senate from losing the Clean Air Act. And this was in 2010. Every year they had brought it back, trying to get rid of it. And every year they would peel somebody else off. And we were one vote away. And so we did some very hard-hitting ads that said, tell Scott Brown in Massachusetts to tell Senator Brown to protect people, not polluters. And in Missouri, we said, tell Senator McCaskill to protect people, not polluters. She was a Democrat, he was a Republican. They were two of the weak links that were taking money from the energy companies and trying to have it both ways, saying that they were environmentalists, and yet they were wavering. And if either one of those had been peeled off, we would have lost the Clean Air Act. And if we'd lose the Clean Air Act in 2010 or now, we'd never get it back. We would never get it back in our lifetime, certainly. And so we did those very hard-hitting ads, and it did the trick. I mean, we got media from all over the country. I did an interview with the Boston Globe, who called up the league. They did 3 stories on this issue because they said, well, this is partisan. League of Women Voters does not do this. And I was vice president at the time, and the president was in Italy. And so I spoke to I did the second story, and I said, look, obviously you don't know the history of the League of Women Voters. How do you think we came to be? We were born in the crucible of fire of a political fight. People, women were put in jail, put in chains for what we were doing. We've always been political. What do you mean? We've got an entire book of positions. What would we do with it? We're always political. We take positions. So sometimes we have to educate the media. And it was a big brouhaha. And the upshot was money just came rolling into the national office. People just started sending money without any kind of an appeal because it was the right thing to do. It was a huge controversy. And it's one of those things, I don't care what you say, just spell my name right. Sometimes you have to cut through the clutter of talking heads and partisanship and just state the facts. And people will listen, and people were grateful for that. And so every now and then, you just have to be brave. If we don't have the courage of our convictions, if we don't stand up for all those positions that we've had for 100 years, 50 years, 40 years, then we don't deserve our credibility. We have to defend it. We have to believe in it. I had spent 45 years of my life as a league member because, I'm, as you can tell, it's about the work. It's never about me. It's not about anything else. It's about the work. And without the league, you can't do the work that we do. Now, I've done a lot of international work, and they always ask me, well, what's different? Relate the league. Tell us another organization that it's like. And I have to tell them there is no other organization like this. There is not. We are truly grassroots. We are all over the country. We are truly nonpartisan. We have always been. We don't have a lot of money. What we have is our reputation, our passion, our objectivity, and we keep doing the same thing we're doing. And it's wonderful that we're here right now in the middle of this horrible maelstrom all around us, talking about the work that we've been doing for 100 years and why we're doing it and why we're not partisan and why we can't let anybody tell us that we are, because you know what they're trying to do when they shout that you're partisan or liberal. They're trying to steal our voices, and we can't let them have, and we can't participate in that. We have to stand up and say, no, we're not partisan. We never have been. And we won't be, because we want to work with everybody. You can call me up or send me an email. If I didn't answer your question, I'm happy to talk to you.